Let's correct this thing right now.
We're rolling?
You were saying?
Yes, we were talking earlier about doing westerns for television.
Yes, I did Wagon Train and the Virginian.
Okay, but not Bonanza.
No, not Bonanza.
One of the Walper shows you did in the mid-1960s was called The World of Jacques Cousteau.
Yeah, that was the first, that was almost the pilot of the Jacques Cousteau series, which I met Jacques Cousteau, and he was a very interesting guy, very interesting. And all these underwater shots allowed music to express other different things that you wouldn't do above the water, you know? So later on, again, I did a movie called The Neptune Factor. And you see the relationship, the school and finally the accomplishment.
So television gave you an opportunity to try out different things that you would later on explore in films?
I wouldn't say try out because that would be unethical. When I was doing a show, I was doing it with a full purpose. First of all, I didn't know that I was going to be later on hired to do something of the same genre for a film, a feature film. I didn't know. I was doing, honestly, what I felt it was best for that television show. But on the other hand, once I got the assignment to do the film of the same genre, I was thankful that I have done that television show because it prepared me for the final product.
What was Jacques Cousteau like?
Oh, he was a very interesting guy. Very, I mean, one of those guys who are unique and like he had this passion for the underwater, the sea, the exploration. He was really, it's almost like a new Christopher Columbus, but underwater.
Later on in the 1960s, you were doing feature films as well as television. How did you balance that part of your career? Did you back off on the television work to focus on features?
I don't know. I was working day and night and doing whatever I could. And I am a workaholic, and I was doing everything. I'm still doing.
And is the process very different in a feature film than in television?
Well, there are more possibilities of development. The difference would be if you had to write a letter to somebody in your family, like you are in vacation or something. A letter has more possibilities of expanding. But if you have to send, nowadays not anymore, with email you don't need it, but in those days there were, you could say, a cable, a telegram. And the telegram is more concise. I arrive okay, love, best wishes, that's it. In the letter you could just say, I arrived and I'm in a great hotel and this place is fantastic, you know. So that's the difference, that television is more concise. It's synthesis. In films, music for films, you can develop and extend a little bit more. And also the budgets allow you bigger orchestras and all that.
Do you think your music has an identifiable style, or in your line of work, is it better to be a chameleon and be able to do anything?
I am a chameleon, definitely. I have an identifiable style maybe in my classical and jazz music. But in music for films and television, I better not, because the main thing we have to remember is that a composer is part of a team. where the cinematographer, the screenwriter, the director, the producer, all the actors, the film editor, they are all trying to get a goal together, and the music is part of that gestalt, let's say, you know. And if I try to impose my own personality in a film that has the personality of the screenwriter and the director, that would be out of place. I have to adjust and adapt yourself. But I like that. It's a challenge and it's nice.
Tell me about your theme for Medical Center. As I recall, you did a pilot with a fairly dignified and low-key theme, but when it came to the series, there was a much more sort of cutting-edge version. Can you talk about that?
Well, when it came to the series, I remember that they had an animation. With animation, they did an ambulance coming toward the camera, toward the viewer. And that gave me the idea of having the music of a siren, the sound of a siren that becomes a melody, the same sound. And I did it with a Moog synthesizer. And I had a rhythm section behind doing some rhythm. So it came out all right. As a matter of fact, I got a letter of congratulations from the head of CBS for that.
And the use of a Moog synthesizer was fairly unusual at the
that time, yes.
I want to get into the 70s and ask you about a handful of television projects you did in the 70s. You did a pilot called Earth 2 with William Reed Woodfield and Alan Balter, sort of set in the future. Did you meet those guys on Mission Impossible?
I don't think so.
No. You recall anything about the
Well, I remember I worked with the head of the music department of MGM, Harry Loyowski, and we spotted it together, and I came with some sounds and ideas. I remember there was an instrument called the baritone vibes. The vibraphone, but a baritone vibe, which is unusual. And I put an echo and I started to create an atmosphere which was kind of futuristic.
Fascinating. You did a comedy series in 1971 with Don Adams called The Partners. Do you recall that?
That was about policemen?
Right. Don Adams and Rupert Cross.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
That was spelling? Spelling?
I don't know. I don't remember that. You did a very interesting theme and a couple of scores for Planet of the Apes in 1974.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that was Lalo Newman asked me to do it. And I did a theme and I did some scores of that.
Was that unusual in terms of its musical approach?
Well, you know, I like challenges, so nothing, I wouldn't say anything is unusual. For me, it was a challenge, and I think I faced it.
You did a couple of other scores in the early 70s for TV series. One was called Petrocelli. With Barry
Oh, yeah,
Newman.
that was an attorney, courtroom drama. That was easy because courtroom dramas have the advantage of not having too much music. They are talking on the court, and the district attorney or the prosecutor and the defense attorney, they talk a lot, and music would be too obtrusive. But there was music in between trials.
Anything notable about that theme that you can remember?
I don't remember that. I think it was a contemporary theme that gave. I don't know if I even used it during the series. I used it in the theme, but in the bulk of the series, I don't know if I used it.
Starsky and Hutch.
Oh, yes.
What can you tell me about that?
That was a spelling.
That was spelling, yes.
Yeah, that was a contemporary music. And I think I did a pilot, no?
Yes.
2 hours.
Right.
Yes, I did that.
Did you meet Aaron Spelling? And what was he like?
Yeah. He was nice. He was very nice.
Did he have any interest in music? Did he suggest anything to you?
No, he was not involved in that. There was another guy who was like a head of the music department, Rocky Mariano.
Mariana, yes.
Yes. It's funny. He was a very nice guy. But when he called here, I thought that he was a fighter, prize fighter, with that name, Rocky Mariano.
Also for Spelling, for Quinn Martin, you did Most Wanted.
Yes.
Which also had a contemporary sound.
Yes, and the actor was the one who did the Untouchables.
Robert Stack.
Yeah, Robert Stack, yes.
Yeah. Did you know Quinn Martin?
I don't think so. I really don't think so.
You recorded your theme for Most Wanted. It was on one of your albums in the 1970s.
Yes.
Do you recall anything about it?
No, except that I recorded.
Do you recall doing a TV movie called The Nativity?
Oh, yes. That was a religious film about Jesus Christ's birth. And yeah, I wrote it, and I was already familiar with liturgical music, and how can you ignore the Missa Solemnis of Beethoven or the Requiem, Mozart's Requiem? And that again prepared me for I didn't know at that time, but I was going to do later on a mini-series called AD, Annus Domini, which is basically not the same thing as after the death of Christ, but right after, it's a sequel. And it was produced by a different company, had nothing to do with it. But I was very proud of that, the score I did.
Yes, 12 hours. It was quite a miniseries.
Yes.
And I think you recorded that in Paris, AD.
Yes.
And with a choir as well as an orchestra?
Yeah, the choir, there was the same choir of the Paris Opera.
And you were a music director at the time of the Paris Philharmonic,
Yes,
right?
Yes.
And again, how did you balance that? Were you flying back and forth?
Yes.
Okay.
I was flying back and forth. But finally I had to give it up because I couldn't keep, I thought that my work as a composer was more important than being the music. There was the problem with to be the music director of any philharmonic is the paperwork, which I didn't know. I thought you learn one piece and you conduct and you go and you rehearse and do the concert. Michael Tissot Thomas said that conducting is a very high form of show business. And I thought that was, but it's not. It's a lot of paperwork, really.
Administration.
Administration, yes.
Yeah. I want to ask you about one particular feature film because I think there's a television outcome from it. The road tarring sequence from Cool Hand Luke somehow became the Eyewitness News theme at some point. Do you know anything about how that came about, and were you involved?
No, well, I was a composer, but I was not involved. The copyright of Cool Hand Luke belonged to Warner Brothers. And for some reason, ABC Network became interested in that theme to use it as Eyewitness News. So the only thing I did is, when they informed me, fine, no problem. I laughed all the way to the bank. But the funny thing was that colleagues of mine, composers, they were calling me, like for instance, when they were playing Cool Hand Luke on television. This is many years after it was released, and they were playing like after the news at night, 11 o'clock p.m. or something, and they were calling me and said, you know, I still love that score because I was nominated for Academy Award. I still love the score, but why you have to use the theme of Eyewitness News?
What did you tell them?
Well, I made a joke or something.
But you didn't re-record it or anything. They just used it.
That's right.
And it was for the ABC?
They bought, yes.
Owned and operated stations, I think.
Yes.
Okay. Can I ask you about a couple of the other, you've mentioned AD, I want to ask you about a couple of the other miniseries from the 80s and 90s. Do you recall doing Hollywood Wives for Aaron Spelling?
Yes. It was, you know, it was an interesting show. I had read the Black Dahlia. You know, you heard the story. And I thought it was going to be like that, but it's not. It was not. But anyway, it was interesting. And it was different from all the other things I've done.
Yeah. You did Out on a Limb, which was the Shirley MacLaine novel.
Yes.
You did that miniseries.
Yes.
Did you meet Shirley MacLaine at all?
Oh, yes.
Oh, did you talk with her about?
Yes, I talked to her about it, and also I met the guy who was the seer, how do you call the one who is he has a name. Future, he can read the future. Clairvoyant, the clairvoyant, and I met him too. He was in the movie, and he was a real guy. He was not an actor. Stan Margulis was the producer, and he was a great guy. I really liked him. I met him in he used to work for Walper.
Right.
And he was a great guy. And I loved doing that movie, that miniseries. It was very appealing to me.
Did you meet Shirley before you wrote your music?
No.
Oh, okay, afterwards.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I met her at the screening when the first preview of the movie, and then we saw each other a couple of times.
Mm-hmm. Do you recall doing the 6-hour miniseries about Jackie Kennedy, which was named A Woman Named Jackie?
Yes.
Yeah. Any memories of the music for that?
No, I don't have any memories of the music for that, but I suppose it was good.
It was good. Any of the other television movies or miniseries that I haven't mentioned that maybe you can think of that you have fond memories of or that you thought were interesting creatively?
Well, I think that you mentioned, you are the one who made the research, and you are the one who knows more about what I've done than I do. So the ones I did mention, like the Doomsday Flight, the Black Cloak, you're talking about television, no?
Yeah.
Those I remember well, and they were good.
Tell me about your collaboration with the Three Tenors, which was around 1990 or so. How did that come about? And since that was basically on television, I think, in Europe, what was your role?
Well, I was called to arrange music for medleys. That the idea was to do the concerts. I did it 4 times. Every 4 years is the World Soccer Cup, and on the eve of the finals of the World Soccer Cup, like in 1990 was in Rome, And 1994 was in, I think, here, the Dodger Stadium. 1998 was Paris, and 2002 Osaka, Japan. You know, soccer is one of the biggest sports in the world. I mean, it's the most popular. The Americans have a problem with that because, of course, baseball and American football are more popular here. But soccer is almost an emotional plague, you know. And to celebrate in the eve of the finals, they decided to do these medleys. And I was called to do it. As a matter of fact, Zubin Mehta was the music director, and he's the one who suggested to each one of the three tenors had a favorite arranger. But Zubin said, no, Lalo is going to do it. And I could handle classical. You know, I knew opera. I've written an opera myself. And I know how to make it work for the singers, even without, they could sing, they could have sang these medleys in a theater without microphones. Because that's the way, when Verdi and Puccini and all the composers of opera, there were no microphones. And you have to make it sound, it's a big challenge to make it sound full, but without covering the voice. So I had studied how to do it in Paris. When I was in the conservatory, I studied. And this was a very nice challenge. And also many of the songs they did, they were public domain, like the Napolitan songs. And I put it in my own publishing company. And the first records sold 12 million units.
Wow. And of course, the three tenors were?
Plácido Domingo, Luciano Pavarotti, and José Carreras.
Were there any ego problems involved with these three high-powered opera stars in terms of what you had to do?
No. The thing is, the secret was to give him equal time. Of course they have egos, but I never had a problem with them because they got equal time. If one sings A bars, the other sings the next A bars, the other sings. I'm giving you a very simple example. And then I put them together, the three together, you know. So equal time, that was the secret of avoiding ego problems.
Okay. Something that you've been involved with in the last few years, maybe really all your career, I want to talk about, and that's the whole idea of jazz meets the symphony. Can you talk a little bit about how you are able to combine classical music and jazz influences into a single work? In some ways, it seems to me you've been doing it your whole life.
I did. And absolutely. I mean, this is my biggest passion. And I'm glad that I'm able to do it. And I've been able to do it. First of all, I never could understand why there was a difference between classical music and jazz. They are both good music. So I already had started to put them together by doing the main title of Bullet, you know, doing the music for Derry Harry. I've been doing it. But this time it's different. And about 10 days ago, I did a concert in Paris, for instance, with Jazz Meets the Symphony. And I had some soloists, like John Faddis, great soloists. And the standing ovation I got. It was so amazing. And for so many minutes, it was very moving. There was a director, Tavernier, who came there. I think he came with Stéphane Larouche. And he he loves jazz. You know, has done at least 2 or 3 films about jazz, like Around Midnight, and so he was very, very nice the way he reacted. And before that, I did many concerts. I've been doing this in the 90s. When Ray Brown was still alive, he was part of the group. And I had, unfortunately, Dizzy Gillespie never could hear. I did, in the first album I did Dizzy Gillespie Fireworks, which is a homage to these. And when I came back from London, I recorded with the London Philharmonic. I want to hear him to hear it. And when I called his house, his nephew told me, too late, we are taking him to the hospital. The hospital where he finally passed away.
That's sad.
Yeah.
But this is obviously important to you.
It's very important.
Jazz meets the symphony.
Well, that's it. That's my work. In films, I have to do, as I said, contribute to what especially the director's vision, or the producers, or the screenwriter ideas. Those are the main sources of the film. But in this case, I'm creating my own film.
Yeah. Tell me about your children. Are any of your children interested in music? What do they do?
No, my children are interested in the arts. They are working in the industry. My oldest son, William, he's a screenwriter, and he wrote some screenplays for feature films. Then my daughter, Frances, they are all married, and they live here in Los Angeles. My daughter, Frances, she's an art designer. She did go to the Rhode Island School of Design, so she knows about fine arts, but she also knows about computers, and she creates graphics for. She's working now for NBC. And then my youngest son, he went to UCLA, studied film. He's a filmmaker. None of them musicians. He's a filmmaker, and he already done a feature film called Abominable, for which I did the music.
And what's his name?
Ryan.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay. We want to summarize a few things here before we wrap up. Can you just say in general, what role does music play in a television show?
The same role that it plays in films is the contribution to create. Look, films and television shows are like magic. They are really not happening. Nobody dies on the screen, unless it's a documentary, of course. But I'm talking about in general. They are actors pretending, and we are all, the team that I said before, we are all contributing to that magic. And music has to capture that magic, has to seduce the audience to believe that what's happening is truth, when it's not truth. So music is part of that.
And in terms of eliciting an emotional response, how important is it?
It's all of the above. It's what I just said.
How has technology affected what you do over the years?
Well, it didn't affect it, it changed it. But I keep writing the same music I would write with a pencil, or they write with computers. The use of sound, digital sound, as opposite to the other sound. All these things they don't concern me. I have to create. I have to create and let the technicians take care of the technical evolutions.
What about the advent of synthesizers? Has that been a good thing?
Synthesizers are instruments like a saxophone, depends what you do with it. What is an instrument? You know, an instrument is something that you use for a purpose. A knife to eat is an instrument. A saxophone to play is an instrument. So a synthesizer is also an instrument. Depends what you do with it. So it can be used very well, it can be used very bad. You know, some people only rely on synthesizers. The main problem with the electronic music, if you want to create emotions, is the emotions that they are created with acoustic instruments playing together and having these frequencies that they bounce into each other, like the sounds of the flutes bouncing into the wood of the violins. All this creates harmonics, and this helps the emotions. So synthesizers don't have that, but you can do it. You can do it by creating the same in a studio after you finish the recording, or even before you do the recording. You can plan it in such a way that you create the same frequencies.
Do you want a little water to soothe your throat at all? Or are you okay?
Maybe. I have.
When? Speed? Okay. Just a little bit, a question about the business aspect of music. Do you receive royalties? How are you compensated when your music plays on television?
Yeah, I receive royalties. It's part of, it's not only because I want it, it's part of the convention, international convention. I think it was in Switzerland, not Geneva, but there's another convention that decided all the countries to have collecting societies that collect royalties for composers, not only from television, but from any areas, any public areas where there's money being paid for or during the diffusion of that music. It could be a concert where people pay for the ticket. It could be television where the sponsors pay for the advertisement. It could be movies where people pay for the ticket. So we get paid royalties, and they are collecting societies. Here in the United States there are two, ASCAP and BMI. I am part of BMI.
Mm-hmm. So they distribute the royalties.
Yes.
And would you find that music and television has been lucrative for you? Has it
Yes.
been a good thing financially?
I'm not complaining.
Okay. We've touched briefly on a number of aspects of your career, but you also have had a very active career in the concert hall, writing symphonic music and chamber music and vocal music. Where does that stand in the hierarchy of Lalo Schifrin's career?
Well, as I said, I'm workaholic. And yesterday came a gentleman to commission me a piece for cello. Recently, Jimmy Ling, who is one of the great, his real name is Chao Ling. He's an American of Chinese descent. He's a virtuoso of the violin. And he commissioned me a concerto for violin and orchestra that he premiered in Norway not too long ago. But the American premiere is going to be soon, at the beginning of 2009, with the Los Angeles Chamber Orchestra. And I've been commissioned by the government of Austria to commemorate the second bicentennial of Joseph Haydn's death. And I've written already, and I'm going to Vienna and also to other places in Austria to work in that project.
So
I mean, already written it.
So you continue to work in concert music and jazz and in films as well?
Yes.
What in your career is your proudest achievement?
Well, pride is a sin. So I wouldn't say that I have proudest achievement. I had some satisfactions. For instance, the songs of the Aztecs, Cantos Aztecas. I've been always fascinated by the Indo-American culture. And when I did it in Teotihuacan with the pyramids, which is an amazing, magnificent natural theater, but dramatic, I mean, really. And I couldn't believe that that was my own project. And they told me that I was crazy, that I wanted to do that. There was a composer, a conductor, who was the son of an ex-president of Mexico, and he wanted to have, in the past, he wanted to do a concert in Teotihuacan. I didn't let him. However, I came with the idea, and it was like putting together a movie. It was a very expensive project because I had Plácido Domingo as one of the soloists. I had the bass singer from the Paris Opera, Nikita Storoyev, who's Russian but lives in Paris. I had two Mexican women, one contralto and one soprano, the best, in Conchita Julián and Marta Felix, plus the orchestra, the Philharmonic Orchestra of Mexico City, and the chorus of that orchestra. It was an amazing thing, and we had to bring, when I say we, people who helped me, to bring a new sound system that had also a screen. I brought the technicians of the Hollywood Bowl and from San Francisco. The screen was so big, and you could have the sound of any instrument. Like if the timpani is there, the sound of the timpani comes from there, not from there in the screen. It was a complete, more than stereo. This is multi-stereo. It was a very, very expensive project, and American Express was a sponsor. I found a sponsor.
And that aired in Mexico on television, didn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That was one of the most, you're talking about proud, but more emotional. I almost cried when I heard it. There were 12,000 people in the audience, and they built like a theater, like the Hollywood Bowl, outdoors, but it was at night, and it was very dramatic. And the pyramids there with the lights and the whole thing, it was one of the most emotional moments of my life.
Is there a single piece of music that defines you?
No. Maybe the Cantos Aztecas.
Okay. What advice would you give to an aspiring composer?
Keep studying, studying, and studying. Study harmony, study contrapoint, study orchestration, and all the composition. And not only that, but go to see a lot of opera, because if you want to write for film or television, you have to have a sensitivity for what is dramatic. And that's the way I never went to study how to write music for films or television, but I've seen a lot of operas when I was even a child. You know, you're talking about, there was Play Misty for me, or the other one, with the women with a knife coming.
Cypher?
No. Special Attraction.
Oh, Fatal Attraction.
Fatal Attraction. That two women with knives. That's the most incredible nightmare, because I've seen the opera Lucia, that in the last act, Lucia comes with a knife. And I was a child, I was 5 years old, and they gave me such nightmares I couldn't sleep at night. But you see, that thing helped to create the feeling of drama, or comedy, or tragedy. That helped. So I would say, go learn from, for instance, Othello by Verdi. If you pay attention, you go to see the opera, but you pay attention what's going on in the pit, what the orchestra is doing. It's background music. And if Verdi would be alive today, he would be the busiest composer in Hollywood.
You know, there was a question I forgot to ask you earlier, and I wanted to ask you. What was the first time you ever saw television? Do you remember where you were, how old you were, what you remember about it?
Well, I probably was in Buenos Aires before I went to France. But television was, over there, was not too developed. It was only live shows. They didn't have films.
Okay. One last question. How would you like to be remembered?
That's beyond what I can even fathom. This is not my problem. That's the problem of the future generations.
Okay, great. Anything else? Okay. Lalo, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Was nice.
All set? Do we need room? Do we need room, Town?
That'd be great.
Okay, yeah, do you want to, how long do you?
Just 20 seconds.
A second?